Hi everyone, welcome to The Yarning, this series of town hall discussions with Queensland Indigenous business owners. My name's Matt Jones. I'm a Torres Strait Islander from Darnley and also the principal of Saga Business Advisory. So before we get started, we'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners from where we're broadcasting from today, the Yagara people, and where you're listening to as well. This series is part of the Indigenous Business is Open for Business program initiative from Advanced Queensland. The aim of the program is to assist Indigenous businesses through COVID-19. And while there's a lot of information out there that can be hard and difficult to access at times, there's been a telephone hotline that's been established for Indigenous business owners. So if you need someone to talk to or just to point you in the right direction, give them a bell on 07 3063 4767. Now, let's get started. So today we're focusing on Indigenous businesses in Southeast Queensland, and we've got three deadly business owners with us today. So first one is Karen from Snap Printing Underwood. Welcome.
Hi, Matt. How are you going?
Good, thanks. I've also got Keith Williams from Royal Black Transfers. Thanks for being here.
No problems, Matt. It's pleased to be here. Pleased to have a chat.
Wonderful. And last but not least, Madonna Thomson, who wears a couple of hats. One is Director of Yagara Duran and the other is Director of Nyanda Tours. Welcome, everyone, and thanks for participating today.
Thank you for having us.
My pleasure.
Thanks, Matt.
So we'll just get started. Let's talk about your business, and that way you can also give yourself a bit of a plug, which is the other idea for today as well. Karen, do you want to start?
Yeah. So I'm Karen Seage. I'm a new knuckle woman from Minjerribah, North Stradbroke Island. I've been working for Snap for 15 years this year, and I bought my own franchise 8 years ago, with the intention of it always being an Indigenous business to help Indigenous people, but also to be able to employ Indigenous businesses. So we're the only Indigenous business Australia-wide for Snap in the Snap family, which is a really great place to be. So we not only just support local Logan area, we also do a lot for Australia-wide. Yeah, and that's pretty much us. We print everything from, small things, business cards. We have large format printers, so we do outdoor signage, flags. We pretty much print most promotional products as well. Anything really that the client needs, we'll find a way to do it. So yeah, that's us.
Great to hear. And actually, the banner behind me, you printed. So, and there's also a couple of leaflets before Supply Nation Connect.
Oh, okay, yeah. So yeah, we have a fair bit of stuff all over Australia now, which is really great. We get a lot of support from big businesses, that just want to use an Indigenous business to give back a little. So yeah, we're in a great position. And when I bought the business, there wasn't one Indigenous business on the books, on the database here, and now we're well and truly over 90%. Either Indigenous businesses or businesses that want to support a Indigenous business. So it's a really lovely place to be. We always have lots of visitors and guests, come in. Clients will come in and sit down and join in, love watching the printing process and their jobs being printed. And yeah, it's definitely a nice place to be. And when I bought, having worked for Snap for so long and working just in a print shop, I really knew that my passion was to turn this into an Indigenous print shop, and we're there, and it's a great place to be and a great place to work. So, yeah,
that's wonderful to hear. Keith, do you want to talk about your business as well?
Oh yeah, well, we're Royal Black Transfer and Tours, so we've got vehicles that do a lot of airport transfers. We do a lot of business-to-business tours as well for places like travel agencies like Flight Centre, Dixon Travel. So a lot of ground transport now. We've been managing the ground transport needs for events last year, which has been great. Really enjoy that. It's light on our vehicles when we bring in a lot of subcontractors as well to deliver on that. look, most of our business is tourism. In between different tour products, we don't run tours. We just take people to the tours and to the hotels as well. Again, most of our business is overseas, travellers, cruise ships, and but look, it's the word's getting out there that there's a Murray business doing passenger transport, and it's really nice to hear that they heard us on the Murray Grapevine, and they're coming in, and I love sitting having a yarn with all the guys who fly in from interstate and Queensland, and I really appreciate their business there, and so do our drivers. So, yeah. Oh, we're located here in Brisbane as well, Matt, mostly, and we've got a vehicle up in Cairns, and we've got a small contract in Townsville that we do, so for Department of Health. But we're varied. We don't always meet the needs of our clients, but we have some really terrific partners in the industry who can supply different unique vehicles so we can meet the demand. So, yeah.
So what are some of the other unique capabilities you're able to bring to the market?
Oh, look, one area is, to our knowledge, we're the only private Aboriginal company in Queensland who has an operator's accreditation to deliver transport. We know, and so that's one area there. The market there's huge competition out there, but our niche area is the mid-range vehicles. We've got some wonderful leather seat minivans and people movers up to the 24-seaters as well that we do there. Look, uniqueness is more so, again, I get to sit and take in the business of our Aboriginal families and friends as well, and that's what I've really appreciated with starting this business. So, yeah.
That's great. Madonna, excited to hear what you have to say.
Thank you. So I'll talk a bit about Nyanda Cultural Tours, which is a business that we launched about 3 years ago in 2017. It took about 14 years in the making because it's based around traditional knowledge and practices around plant use, around resources that our family groups under the Agara speaking group used in that space. And so we were part of the original rehabilitation of Nudgee waterholes, and we also did all the planting and the native bush foods planting in there about 14 years ago. So we always had the intention that we would build that into an educational experience, which we've now done. And so the whole purpose of doing what we're doing under Nyanda is because we wanted the rest of community and Australia to appreciate just the contribution that we bring as First Nations people and the unique perspective with which we see and utilise the environment. So my family's been involved with maintaining that particular site for 14 years. And since launching, we've had over 1,000 school students attend, and we've had a couple of hundreds of individuals as part of visitor tours and a few corporate tours. So it was really starting to grow. So yeah, and we've got another 2 experiences that we are looking at launching either this year or early next year.
What are you actually looking at launching over the next 12 months?
I can't say. I can't say yet, but one is very much a cultural food tour. It's working with the local regional tourism operator as well. It's something that hasn't actually been offered in Australia yet, which we'll launch in Brisbane. And then the other is also from a traditional owner perspective regarding the Brisbane River itself. So yeah, they're things that we're developing and hopefully be able to launch by the end of the year or before the end of the year, and hopefully in 2021, which I heard is continuing to be the year of the Indigenous tourism.
So very much watch this space, and fingers crossed that 2021 is the year for Indigenous tourism. I'm sure we'll do everything we can to make that happen. Now, we're all aware of COVID-19 and its impact broadly across the economy, and as small business owners, its impact, it's fair to say, it all of us have been impacted. Keith, I'd like to hear from you, since it sounds like your market segment has been quite exposed, particularly focused on tourism. How has it impacted upon your company?
It's it put it to a standstill through the first time our Prime Minister said, look, we're putting restrictions on gatherings. Pretty much every booking just ceased. We've been trading three years, and we've had some hurdles. We've had some periods of time in different seasons where we didn't get that work, and we had just come off one whole year of some really good trading, and we built good relationships, and then we got through, and we were ready to then continue this bumper rise of work. It was we're really excited with bookings all the way through to November with events and transfers and with schools and with patient transport and things like that, and then it just stopped. And in March we went from having a really good continuous cash flow, and then March we went to zero revenue, and for the next 3 months it continued that way. You had to. What did you do? When was the lockdowns going to change, or when were people allowed to fly back in? We just didn't know, so we really had to review our business expenditure. We had to look at our assets. What did we need and what didn't we need? And each month we were just cutting back on our expenses. We got a bit of a reprieve of being able to draw back on my super, and I was able to put that into the business. I had to stop taking a wage. And then we had to learn about all the paperwork and all grant opportunities, and you go from being your core business to running a transport company to then now navigating through the internet and through government policies and procedures, and then how to apply for these grants or funds, which we ended up not actually qualifying for a lot of them, or the allocation had been issued out by the time we were 4 days and 6 days after the release, then the allocation had been already gone out, and so we didn't have that. We used our last funds to make sure that our BAS and our tax was sorted and right, so we didn't have any bills going forward. But look, we set up a contingency, but since then the lockdowns have changed and businesses slowly started to come back, and we've been able to put that into the business. I took on job seeker because I just stopped work, and then I had to go and look for other work elsewhere. We still paid our licenses to keep the business running. We still paid our insurance, and if we hadn't had such a good season and had a little bit of liquid in the bank, we wouldn't have been able to pay all our bills. and look, we didn't know what we would do come August or October. We didn't want to borrow money. We're not asset rich, and so we can't borrow back on those assets to inject into the business. So I was really looking for work, just in case, full-time work, and put the business on hold. But that's sort of what COVID has done for us. However, during that time of unsureness, you still, all it is business development. You're just tiring yourself out of looking for little bits of work to get your assets working and bringing in more cash flow. But that became tireless, and work didn't come. So we had to look at. We've now looked at diversifying and actually starting business in a whole new industry that around consumables that might not be hit so much if we have lockdowns in the future. So we needed to diversify. We have to, so we can continue to have multiple cash flow or streams of revenue coming in depending on the circumstances of what's happening in the world at the moment.
Yeah, it sounds like a pretty solid response. So just to summarise, you went through and looked at all of your expenditure with a fine-tooth comb. As I say, when times are particularly tough, going out and looking for work or wearing out the leather or your fingers if you're speed dialing or emailing people trying to chase down that contract.
Mm-hmm.
And then, diversification of income stream to embrace the new normal. We'll probably go into a little bit more depth later on, but I am also conscious of time. Madonna, do you want to have a chat about your experiences as well?
Yeah, mine's very similar to Keith's. I mean, being a tourism experience in which you rely upon participation. So COVID put a stop to participation. And, after all the years of work of building it to a point where this year was looking like being more promising. So it was just increasing in the number of bookings. And just so everyone knows, myself and my husband who co-owns this venture, we haven't received a wage. So we're building it to a point where you put so much of your own time, energy and finances in, and it doesn't, you don't always get that return quickly. It takes some time. So what income was coming in was to pay the casual tour guides, which are members of our family groups, and we were training at the same time. And we also adopt and implement a procurement policy, which is about always sourcing from Indigenous businesses in our supply chain. So it doesn't leave much for them paying ourselves. So then we're thinking, oh, great, 2020 is going to be a really beaut year. We've got a lot more bookings this year than the previous. And then COVID just, saw an end to that. So with being a tourism business, nothing happens. Slowly now it's getting back online, meaning that people are starting to, in a domestic sense and locally, wanting to participate because they're getting out and about a bit. The schools may take a very much longer time to come back. Corporates are now starting to look at booking, providing we don't get a second spike that then shuts us down in a domestic or local area. One of the issues, not an issue, I suppose, what it made us think about with COVID is that if we rely 100% on actual physical participation, we are limiting our audience and we are limiting the opportunity of the product. So we're now looking at, one, improving our social media and online presence and what that might look like. And that's why we also looked at, do we need to diversify in the type of offerings that we have in terms of experiences? We've also then had to take on board, what are the additional expenses now that we're going to incur as a result of these new COVID health and safety requirements around experiences and physical participation.
Yeah, thanks for that. The additional compliance costs can be quite tricky to navigate yourself. And I think that's always where, trying to find the right source of professional advice that's appropriate for your business, particularly with the SME space, is important. And then it's also making sure that it's the right level as well and they're not focused on the higher end or too low, but bespoke with you, and we'll walk with you on that journey. Karen, would you like to share your experiences as well, please?
Yeah, for me, it was, I guess, the absolute shock that work just immediately stopped. As soon as March came and everyone knew COVID was here, most of our work is gatherings or functions, big functions. So they just started, we're not doing it now, we're doing it next year. So that's a huge amount of our sales. Meanjin markets were cancelled, Supply Nation Supply Connect, which, you know, we do so much work for Indigenous businesses for that. Strong Women, Strong Business through IBA was cancelled. So immediately I could look at the sales and go, well, that's going to take a huge amount of our 2020 sales. But then it was just everything. Nobody placed orders. No one wanted to spend money. They were too nervous. So print was the first thing. Hey, we don't need to print this, or put signage out, or do any of that, because we're in this situation. We don't know how it's going to end up. So we need to keep every cent that we've got in our bank. So we virtually dropped, I think it was 78% in the first month. The next month we went to 68% drop. And we have quite huge overheads, you know, with the lease. We were leasing a building, all the leasing of equipment, wages, all of that I had to keep doing, even though I had no cash flow. We had done really well, and I built the business up over the last 3 years, so there was a fair bit of savings there. But that's now gone because I kept all the staff on. Thank goodness for JobKeeper, because the most important thing was for me was to keep my staff here, because a lot of them are single mums with young children, and they'd been, their whole life had changed. They work full time now, which they had never done before, and if it meant going back and being on Centrelink, that was really a struggle for them to think that may happen, and may happen really quickly. So we used our savings, and we kept the doors open. I phoned clients to see if I could get any amount of work in. The 30% of work that we did keep mostly came from construction, because that seemed to still keep going. We have a few clients in the mining industry, and so there was that sort of work. So we managed to keep the doors open. I got to the point where I thought, you can't run a business with no cash flow. So I contacted IBA and I applied for their grant and received that. And that's just been fantastic. That's keeping us going, paying the bills. June was we started to pick up again. And so, you know, we're sort of on the up and up. But I guess the scariest part for me was that I'd put so much work into this over an 8-year period of turning it into the centre that I wanted it to be, to see it like within a day, just no sales. And we'd never been through that. And I guess it was scary to think that all the work you've done, all the hours you've put in, something like this that you never expected could just affect your business so badly. But yeah, look, we've worked hard. The girls have, had their hours cut to JobKeeper, but at least it's keeping food on their tables. They just want the doors to stay open like I do. And we've just got our fingers crossed that this doesn't happen again, that, you know, COVID doesn't take off in Queensland again, because we're just starting to get back on track. So I guess it was the fear of everything, just not knowing. Just how can you be a successful business one day and then the next day just have nothing? Nothing normally would cause that, you know.
Right on.
And I guess the uncertainty of it all.
Right on. It's actually it's really understandable, and it ties in with a lot of experiences from small businesses where, because you're so personally invested in your own business, that if there's, you know, a downturn in revenue, you don't have people coming in the doors. Normally, you've traded your way into it. You know what you need to do usually, or you can ask someone to help you out. But when it's not your fault, it's hit the entire economy, and you and your business have just hit a massive wall. Well, that's something entirely different. And as we're now, fingers crossed, moving out of the lockdowns, and we're starting to see a resumption of normal trade. What I'd like to know is that each of you had similar experiences around dipping into your own back pocket to fund working capital around super, either your own savings or accessing grants if possible. Now, as we go out of the lockdowns and quarantine, how are you going to diversify your income or change your business approach, given that this will probably be our new normal until a vaccine is brought to market, hopefully over, within the next 12 months. And this is open to whomever wants to answer it first.
First, if that's okay, but I also want to just draw on something that Keith said about grants and funding being available. Because we didn't make a turnover of over $75,000 in last financial year, we weren't eligible for any of the grants. And it is something that I've raised with a number of sources, that as a small family business, there should have been some allocation, even if it was $500 to $1,000 for small businesses, just to be able to adjust to the new COVID requirements to operate. So we actually had to minimise and change the way we had contact with participants, because it's a very interactive experience, which we can't really do anymore. We have to limit that and change it so that people can still participate, but it's got to be done in such a way as to ensure that there's no transmission if that occurs. When it comes to diversifying, we actually draw an income from an alternative business, because the reality is in the tourism that we deliver, we just weren't earning enough to pay ourselves. And that's why we were looking forward to it growing, so that we could be in a position of being able to pay ourselves for the time that we do in the tours, because I'm one of the senior guides that runs the tours. So in each of those experiences, I'm paying a niece or a nephew who I'm training to assist me in the tours, but unable to pay myself. So if that doesn't change for us, then it means I've got to continue to rely on the consultancy to be able to pay my income while running a tourism business.
Look, from the Royal Black point of view, we've had to adopt the new COVID-safe travel plans, which our tourism industry have put out. So that's how, and now we're in the process of promoting how we do that. At the moment, we talk to our clients as they're getting in the vehicle. Our new procedures also mean we have to do a lot more management and cleaning of our vehicles. Every time we might have a multi-stop client who does multi-stops, and so every time they step out into the public, we need to get in and clean that whole vehicle, whether it's a 60-seater vehicle or whether it's just a 6-seater vehicle. So we've got those, especially when we're doing our little economic development tours with the council out and about. So however, again, we don't know if it is going to shut down, like Madonna says. So we really are researching and looking at what were the industries that continued to work during the shutdowns. Some really did boom, and as Karen said earlier, the construction, we had houses continually being built through that, and so we looked at what demands or what needs to be supplied to those industries that kept working, and again, we haven't quite got those funds to jump into that industry yet, but we're making that plan to see if we can enter that and just produce or create a new revenue stream.
I think for us moving forward, I had to bring something into the centre that would keep my staff employed. So I had savings enough to put in large format machines, folding machines, and I've put that in so that all the work that comes out of here now, it gives the staff employment. It keeps them going. So moving forward, we can supply more products that we couldn't supply before that actually come from inside my shop. It was an outlay that I made personally, but moving forward, it gives us better margins on all our products. We can sell for better pricing. So if this continues to go as it is, I mean, my bottom line doesn't change. It's still, I've got to have that $35,000 a month to be open and honest. I've got to have that $35,000 a month, whether I have sales coming in or I don't have sales. So I've got to make it. I've got to have that money in my account, or we end up closing the doors. So the best way for me to do it moving forward was to get extra equipment, sell more products. Our range is much wider now. A lot of it we haven't had a chance to use yet, but moving forward that will help me keep the doors open. So that's kind of what that's the only thing I could do. I mean, we make calls and we let people know we're still here. The doors are open, but that's continual. That's every day. The staff are ringing to see if clients need things.
Wonderful. Thank you for your responses. Now, just one more final question before we close up today. What's your top tip for other Indigenous businesses?
It's hard to come up with one at a time like this. I think it's the unexpected. None of us know what's going to happen. If your business starts to go downhill, and it's your business, there's a reason for that, and you can make those changes. We're all in the situation now where nobody knows what's going to happen in the next month for Queensland, and I think that's the scary part. I just say to the staff every day, we need to stay positive. Every job that comes in is awesome. Whether it's $10 or $3,000, it's awesome because it's putting money in the bank. Let's just keep being positive and hope that COVID stays out of Queensland.
Yeah, I'm with Karen. It's difficult to have one, but I suppose the advice I give people is, one, understand the nature of the work that you do, and whether there is a market for it. And secondly, manage expectations around the time frame of when you think you're going to start making a profit, because usually the first couple of years, depending on whether it's a service or a product and whether there's a market for it, is usually you just might break even by the second year. You might be able to cover some of your expenses, and maybe by the third year you might be able to have a little bit of a profit that you can put back into the business. And social media is huge in terms of engagement and getting people to understand what it is that you have and that you're offering.
Thanks, Madonna. They're good tips there. Look, I come from look, don't do business alone. Don't try and think you've got all the answers. There's so many facets of business. If you tried to be good at everything, you're going to definitely produce quality. But look, it's business. You do want good quality, but you also need quantity. And you can do that best by not doing it alone and networking and collaborating, especially with industry partners. They may even be seen as competitors, but look, I've really found some good support and good encouragement from other transport companies, especially some who are similar size to me, who have been able to help me out at times. Sometimes we get stuck in traffic and we just can't quite get back to our next job, and somebody can step in for you. Somebody's always got some good advice who've been in who've been in the game longer than you have. So look, don't do it alone. Find those people who will jump on the business journey with you, who might be doing it themselves, but also don't forget to celebrate your little wins on there as well, and celebrate with them, no matter how small they are, and just really keep encouraging each other, because we don't always have those invoices paid on time, and sometimes we're just putting out quotes and not getting the job, which however, the longer you're in it, the more people you know, and have some fun doing business with others.
Yeah, I'd certainly agree with trying to have fun, which might seem strange coming from an accounting perspective, but I've said it and it's out there in the cyberspace anyway. So thank you all for participating today. It's actually been a really good yarn with each of you. For everyone who's listening or watching, if you want to get more information about Snap Printing Underwood, Royal Black Transfer, Yagara Duran or Nyanda Tours, you can find their links on their websites. On Indigenous Business is open for business Facebook. Now, next yarning town hall will be heading up north, so please keep an eye on social media for more details. And if you are an Indigenous business owner and like to be involved in our 100 micro stories of Indigenous business campaign, please, again, check out the link on Facebook, Insta or LinkedIn. Alternatively, phone the hotline or direct message us. And remember, if you do need support or if you just want someone to yarn to and get a second opinion, call the hotline on 0730634767. Now, I'm Matthew Jones, and thank you everyone for joining us today.